If you compare beer with bratwurst,
And cheese with wine.
or even whiskey,
With donuts.
then we think you can pair all of these delicious drinks with
Murder.
conspiracies
Missing persons.
and more.
Drink with us as you feed your craving for true crime and creepy stories.
Hello, hello.
Howdy, howdy.
It's been a little bit.
A little bit, 2 weeks.
Feels like a long time. It's not that long. I've gotten used to doing this every week now. It's been about 10 weeks.
10? That's unbelievable.
Maybe 11 or 12, but it's been over 10 weeks. It's part of our life now.
It really is.
And we're gonna try and take as few breaks as we can.
Right.
But with Halloween and sick
life
kids
in general.
and sicknesses have just been killing our family lately. Just one after another, and it rolls through all of us.
We should have paired this podcast with like 30 ounces of NyQuil.
Right.
Milliliters,
yeah. I mean, ounces, you know.
That's probably what we could have consumed.
All right, so as usual, you don't tell me much about the story. And, on this one, I know it takes place in Montana.
Yes.
The true north.
Montana, what's it, the home of the big sky or something like that?
I don't know. I don't know much about Montana outside of what Yellowstone tells me.
Which is true story, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Just completely
everything.
factual.
It's definitely not a soap opera at all. An action-packed soap opera. But, so, outside of that, it looks beautiful, especially in that show. And pictures I've seen. I know people that have gone there. But I did go to a good friend of mine, Brett. Thank you, Brett, for the suggestions. He gave me
I'm not going to thank you yet, Brett, because my husband kept it quite a secret from me, which makes me a little bit nervous.
Well, he gave me a few suggestions. I didn't quite have enough time for one of them, but we
have another Montana story.
I was going to say, I know we've got another one coming, so we'll get to the good one later. I think this one's a fun one. And apparently this is like, Montanan, whatever they call themselves, Montanians.
Tony Montanans.
These are two staples for them.
There are 4 glasses currently set out on our tables.
So as you can see, I don't think anybody else would be able to see, even if they bothered to watch YouTube. We have 4 glasses, 2 beers, and 2...
something that looks like Coke.
Yeah, we've got a couple slippers. So usually we actually start our show with a shot before we start recording.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
so
know
this one is starting slow.
I don't know if you noticed that we didn't do that.
Nope.
But we didn't because we're going to do something fun here.
Is it a car bomb?
So we have here, Montana loves their Busch Light. So
geez.
we got 2 glasses of Busch Light here. We've got 2 shot glasses. And some Jack Daniels. So apparently Montanans,
not a car bomb.
I should have asked them what they call themselves. Them up there in the north really like Jack Daniels. So we got Jack and Coke.
Oh, okay.
For our sippers.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah. And then we're going to do a Boilermaker, which you drop a shot of whiskey into Busch Light and you take it like a car bomb.
A Boilermaker.
Boilermaker. Yeah.
Goodness. What are they getting up to in Montana?
Well, so Brett told me it's cold in Montana, and these bad boys warm you up. So I guess I could see that. Oh, geez. I just spilled on my keyboard. It's going to go on the fritz.
And they are just out there in fields surrounded by prairie maggots drinking Boilermakers.
Prairie maggots, huh?
Apparently that's what they call sheep.
Oh, my gosh.
Only in Montana. Oh, geez. I'm sorry.
There.
I'm very nervous about a Boilermaker. This is not how I live life.
Your setup is not very great here.
Well, What do you do with this? You just dump it in?
Yeah, you can either dump it in or you can drop the shot in just like a car bomb.
No.
Which I'm going to do because I'm a man.
I'm not a
All
man.
right. Ready?
Yeah.
Cheers.
I'm stopping so I can actually taste it. So I can give my Katie's notes on the Boilermaker.
I don't think that's the point.
I don't think I can taste the Jack Daniels. That's what's crazy.
Yeah. It was like Busch Light with a hint of Jack. You're not doing it right. Down that thing.
I'm not from Montana. I'm from Denver.
Oh my gosh. Sorry, people.
This is how we do it. Woo!
So, that's a Boilermaker. That's not bad.
You can't taste the Jack Daniels.
I mean, I could taste a hint. When you drink
I've never had Busch Light, so I don't know
all
what.
At once, I think it flows into there.
It's sitting heavy in my stomach right now, though.
Making you warm?
Ooh.
It's giving me the burps.
I got the chills. It's doing the opposite to me.
Weird.
I don't know what to tell you. All right. Well, a Boilermaker from Montana as we sip on a Jack and Coke, because apparently Jack is very popular in Montana, would be perfectly paired with a story of Montana's own Missoula Mauler.
Missoula Mauler. That's an interesting name.
It actually was the name of a hockey team for a while, too. I don't know if they knew.
Wait. Okay, so the town is Missoula.
Uh-huh.
And the
killer is
a Mauler. So they named him Missoula Mauler.
Yeah. And then a hockey team took that name for a while.
That's not being very polite to the dead.
I don't think they're called that anymore.
I like it, though. That's a bold move.
Bold. Very, very bold.
It's a bold move, Scott. Let's see if it pays off.
So, in the late night hours of September 3rd, 1986, Doug Wells found himself in a very precarious life or death situation in the basement of his own home. Doug was bound and bleeding copiously from an 8-inch stab wound in his chest. As Doug strained against his bindings, trying to free himself, blood poured onto the ground, threatening Doug's exsanguination. The only thing that was more terrifying than the reality of his quickly approaching death was the fact that the man who had tied Doug up and buried an 8-inch blade into his torso, intending to hit his heart, was currently upstairs with Doug's defenseless wife.
Oh, no. 8 inches, man.
In that moment, it did not matter to Doug what childhood could have created the monster who attacked him. Doug surely wasn't thinking about the other terrible crimes this man must have committed to so confidently come into his home with murder on his mind. The only thing that mattered to Doug was getting his hands free. But for the sake of our story, we must leave Doug in this precarious situation for the moment and start from the beginning. But rest assured, we will end this story with Doug. Because you see, this is the story of Doug, furniture salesman, business owner, and husband, and the day he came face to face with an evil monster who wanted nothing more than to murder Doug and have his way with Doug's wife, and in the end, kill her as well.
Ooh. It sounds like Ramirez already.
Oh, Richard.
Yeah.
Oh, Richard Ramirez. This man's name was Wayne Nathan Nance, and he was born on October 18th, 1955 in Missoula, Montana. Just outside of town, Wayne grew up in a small mobile home with his father, who was a truck driver, and his mother, who made her living as a waitress. As a teen, Nance was described as weird. To many in town, he boasted that he actually worshiped Satan. He was so dedicated to his Satan worship that he would use a scorched coat hanger to burn satanic symbols into his skin. Nance was also well known for having a hot temper and being a quote-unquote troublemaker. Despite these less desirable qualities in a young man growing up in Montana in the 60s, Wayne Nance was actually a capable student, receiving A's and B's while at school. Most would recall by the time Wayne Nance was in his 30s, he appeared to be just another average guy. Now, when Wayne Nance was 18 years old, he had some teenage friends who lived just down the street from his home. The 3 Pounds children lived with their parents. Harvey Pounds was a deacon at Bethel Baptist Church, and his sweet wife Donna worked at a Christian bookstore. On the afternoon of April 11th, 1974, Harvey was at work, and all 3 of the children, Kenny, Karen, and Kathy, were away from the home. This left Donna Pounds home all by herself. That afternoon, a man snuck into the Pounds home. His first order of business was grabbing the family's .22 caliber Luger. After acquiring this weapon, the perpetrator tied up a terrified Donna with clothesline in a spread eagle position. After raping her, this man led her to their basement and shot her 5 times in the head.
Oh, all right. Let's just start
Oh,
right
Donna.
into the gruesomeness.
Now, after police arrived at the Pounds home to investigate this horrific crime, a neighbor of the Pounds family reported that they actually saw someone who looked an awful lot like Nance near the home the afternoon of the home invasion, sexual assault, and murder. Police did question Nance, but Nance provided police with the following alibi. He had been sick in bed all day when Donna Pounds was attacked.
Yeah, that checks out.
I'm ill.
Well, it seems ill to me, Captain.
Well,
Let's let him go.
when police searched Nance's home, they found a bloody pair of underwear, and the blood was determined to be from a human source. But investigators could not conclusively determine where the blood had come from. And since the underwear had been washed, investigators decided to move on and look for their suspect elsewhere.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, fate is going to shine its face upon Wayne Nance because our deacon, Harvey Pounds, as it would turn out, was having an affair.
No.
Yes.
So, Harvey be pounding.
Yeah, he be
More-
pounding.
More than just his wife.
Oh, Donna.
Oh.
Well, way to go, Harvey, because you just earned your position as the number 1 suspect in Donna's heinous attack.
Ooh.
So I hope all that pounding was worth it.
Boy. Can't a pound just get away with a pound?
No,
And not get
never.
charged with
May
murder?
that be a
Or,
lesson
I
to
guess,
you.
Suspected of murder?
Well, investigators were never able to identify or collect.
I just realized you just said.
May it
let
be a
that be a
lesson to
lesson.
you, Jason.
Oh, I know.
It will be found out.
I'm scared to do anything against you.
But despite being the number 1 suspect, there was never enough evidence to charge Harvey or anyone else. So poor, working at a Christian bookstore Donna's case turned ice cold.
Man, that is it's a rough go. You know,
Isn't it?
you're just living life, pleasing God, and you get heinously
get-
raped.
Your husband's been cheating on you. Wow.
I wonder-
That's awful.
I wonder if she suspected him though. Hopefully not.
Um,
Hopefully not.
If she's a Baptist woman, even if she did, she was just going to shut her mouth and go to work and take care of the kids and not say a thing anyway.
Oh, that's how they do it, huh?
Well, I'm a Baptist. I can say things.
Oh, you're a Baptist. So I've got the green light then. You're not
Well.
going to change anything.
I'm a Reformed Baptist. I don't raise my hands to pray, but I absolutely will shoot a husband if he cheats on me.
No, I could tell you still got a little Baptist in you. When our
We
pastor makes jokes about Baptists,
It's
you
hilarious.
don't laugh. I'm
I
just
do.
kidding. Anyway, back to the story.
Okay. In 1979, which would be 5 years after the brutal slaying of Donna Pounds, the body of a raped and stabbed teenage girl wearing what was left of a white flower print dress was found near the I-90 in Missoula, close to the Beaver Tail Hill State Park.
Gotta love the naming.
Just wait. Just wait. Just if you have a
So
joke.
It's Beaver
Tail
Hill State Park.
No. Just don't. If you have a joke, just wait for
I
it.
don't. I'm just.
Okay.
I'm admiring the four names
Just wait.
for the one thing.
Now, when investigators were unable to connect these remains to any missing persons report, this unidentified victim was dubbed Betty Beavertail.
Oh, gosh.
And this is how the victim would be known until 1985, which is just like Montana. Stick with Jane Doe. Why? And that's one of 3 names that are curious.
I can't wait for the rest.
Jeez.
I'm going to steal what you usually do. And you always go, oh, poor, whoever.
Because you want to say the name.
Oh, poor Betty Beavertail.
Just come on, Montana.
Not only was she brutally murdered, but she gets dubbed
Betty Beavertail.
Betty Beavertail.
It's awful.
I wonder if that's a thing. Is there a lot of Betty Beavertails?
No, just
or do they?
I think it's in Montana
give all
alone.
Jane Doe's different names.
Just wait. Can you just put a pin in that?
I love it.
Because we have
that
2
should be a
more.
thing.
We have 2 more, Jason.
All right.
So it was in 1985 that these remains were positively identified as a 15-year-old runaway from Seattle, Washington.
Oh, she's 15?
Goodness.
And she had to die as Betty Beavertail?
Yes. Her name was actually Devonna Nelson. Despite her identification.
Prettier name.
Yes. Investigators were no closer to identifying her killer. Then in 1984, which would have been prior to Devonna Nelson's remains being identified, Nance found himself working as a bouncer at Missoula's Cabin Bar. It was during this time that he was dating 16-year-old drifter. Her name was Marcella Bachman, but like any good drifter, she went by a completely different name.
Marcella Bachman. That's an interesting one because it's like Italian Spanish on the first one. And then Bachman, I imagine that's, you're definitely...
The name of a white banker.
Yeah.
Well, she wanted to be called Robin.
Oh, okay.
Marcella Bachman, a.k.a. Robin.
I never get that. People that want a fully different name.
I think she didn't want to be tied to her old life.
Hmm.
She probably had parents who loved her, who reported her missing, and so she had to give a different name.
Okay.
That September, the couple shared with friends that they were intending to leave town so that they could, quote, start anew, unquote. 3 months later, Robin was found dead in Missoula's woods by a wildlife photographer. Her cause of death was 3 gunshot wounds to the head, and at the time the remains were discovered, they had been decomposing in the woods for 3 months.
Jeez. And this is, you said, from Betty Beavertail to the first one was 5 years, right? Is that what you said?
Yes.
And then to this one is how long?
6 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Now, at the time Robin's remains were found, investigators were unable to identify them. As a result, this victim was originally referred to as Debbie Deer Creek. And that is how they would remain until 2006.
So this has to be a thing they do for Jane. They're just not.
I feel
Jane
like
Doe
it's in Montana.
is disrespectful. Let's give them a Native American sounding name.
And alliteration, because all the first letters are the same.
Yes.
And it has something to do with the wild woods that just obviously stretch across the beautiful state of Montana.
I love the thinking outside of the box.
Okay.
Beaver.
Just wait till the third one. I can't even say it. Not because it's like funny. It's just difficult to say.
Sweet.
So in 2006, DNA would be used to positively identify Debbie Deer Creek as Marcelina Bachman, a.k.a. Robin the Drifter, a.k.a. the girlfriend to Nance.
Man, she sounds like a criminal with that many
aliases. Now, 1 year after the death of Robin, or the victim known as Debbie Deer Creek, in September of 1985, another set of remains were found. This time, the body was discovered by a bear hunter because, Montana. This set of remains was given the name Christie Crystal Creek, which is like an attempt at a stripper name, but also not.
Christie Creek. I can't even say it.
It's so difficult to say.
Crystal Creek.
Yes.
Whew. Oh, I just want to know, like, be a fly on the wall when they're coming up with these names.
Somebody was probably very, very proud of themselves.
Or just like very, very proud that they made everybody have to say that.
I
like,
can't even.
News people, everybody who's having meetings about it. I mean,
Christie Crystal Creek.
This episode of the Perfectly Paired With podcast is brought to you by Jason Owen of the Impact Group. You'll be hard-pressed to find a better real estate agent than Jason Owen. If you live in the Denver metro area, be sure to contact him and ask him about the special savings you could receive as a first responder or a teacher. He is out there trying to help those that help us. Contact Jason Owen at the link in the description of this podcast and ask about those savings. That's Jason Owen of the Impact Group, a division of Your Castle Real Estate.
Now, experts determined that Christie Crystal Creek was of Asian descent due to some dental work that they found in her mouth that was specific to the continent of Asia. Other than that, investigators knew very little about our victim or the perpetrator of the crime.
jeez.
And as of December 1985, Wayne Nance had not been connected to any of these victims.
Connected as in like in the area? Or
Nothing. They had no idea that Wayne Nance
Were they
would have had
were they
anything
still going
to do
back
with.
to him as
No. Pounds is long gone. It's cold. These three victims aren't even being connected to each other, let alone to Nance.
Well, that's a long time, like, apart from each other. And all I can imagine is Nance standing there with, like, blood splatters all over him and him just being like, oh, I was sleeping. I must have cut myself.
I was
and I'm
sick.
sick. I was coughing up blood. I don't know. And they were like, well, sounds all right to me. We'll let you go.
Investigators had no reason to think that Nance at this point in time was connected to any of them. So here it is. Our story finds us in December of 1985. And Mike and Teresa Shook were home on the evening of December 12th with their 3 children. That winter evening, the family had just finished eating dinner when there was a knock on the front door. The knock quickly turned into a banging. When Mike opened the door, he was greeted by a man wielding a large butcher knife. And there, in the entryway of his own home, Mike was stabbed to death. The perpetrator then dragged Teresa into her bedroom, where he raped her, and then stabbed her to death, just like he had done to her husband. After both Mike and Teresa were dead, their attacker set the Shook house on fire with the intention of killing all 3 children.
Where are the kids during all this?
I
hope he locked them in another room.
I don't think anybody knows. They're somewhere in the home.
Hope they weren't aware of their father being murdered and their mother being raped, then murdered.
Well, and I'm going to use the term lightly. Luckily for the 3 Shook children, neighbors were able to get them and remove them from the home before the fire spread too far. There was no sign of the murderer / rapist / arsonist when the police arrived.
It does match up with the first one.
Mm-hmm.
The Pounds.
Donna Pounds.
Yeah.
Then, in 1986, Wayne Nance started working as a delivery driver for Conlin's Furniture. While working at Conlin Furniture, Wayne Nance fell in love with his manager, a woman named Chris. Now, the only problem with this was that Chris was already married, and her husband was a man named Doug Wells, the owner of Conlin Furniture.
Damn.
Now, for most men, that might be the end of any thoughts of them being with Chris. But clearly for Wayne Nance, a man who had gotten away with a lot in his life, he wasn't about to let a little thing like the Wells marriage or a complete lack of interest from Chris get in his way. So it was on the evening of September 3rd, 1986, that as Doug and Chris Wells settled in for the night, that Doug saw someone skulking around in the bushes in front of the couple's home. When Doug went out to investigate, he was surprised to see that the man in his bushes was actually an employee of his own company. After Doug questioned Nance as to why he was in the couple's front yard, Nance convincingly told his boss that just as Nance happened to be driving past the couple's house, he actually noticed someone peeking in through the front windows. And as any good employee would do, he stopped to see what this unknown person was up to. Nance then asked Doug for a flashlight to better look for the mystery person. And as Doug turned to retrieve a light, Nance pistol whipped Doug from behind. Once inside the couple's home, Nance ordered Chris at gunpoint to tie up her husband. After Doug was securely bound, Nance proceeded to tie Chris up and then dragged her into the couple's bedroom. From there, Nance ordered Doug into the basement, again at gunpoint, and it was then that Doug was stabbed with an 8-inch knife in his chest. Leaving Doug for dead, bound and bleeding on the basement floor, Nance turned, walked up the stairs, and returned to helpless Chris. It would later be determined that Nance had only missed Doug's heart by an inch. Doug literally came within an inch of his life. But as it turns out, that was all Doug needed. Eventually, Doug was able to free himself from his bindings. The first thing Doug did was grab his .250 Savage rifle, and while still bleeding from the wound in his chest, Doug staggered up the stairs.
I like it.
Upon finding Nance, Doug shot him once, but only in Wayne's side. And then Doug proceeded to bash Wayne Nance's head in using the butt of his rifle.
Yes.
Like, he could have shot him in the head. He was like, no.
No
MFer.
He doesn't deserve to go out with one shot to the head.
And if you could see a
He
picture
deserves to feel every single time Doug hits him.
of Doug Wells, he's like this very straight-laced man in like a sweater who you would not think has it in him to do this. And he just like unleashes.
Oh, yeah. It's so good when you hear like someone do something.
Get it, Doug Wells.
Awesome like that.
Now, all three individuals in the Wells home during that night's events were taken to the hospital. Both Chris and Doug would survive. But alas, Wayne Nance would not be so lucky. He eventually would succumb to his wounds the following day. And it was with his death that the families of many seemingly unconnected victims got the answers that they had been so desperately waiting for. When police searched Wayne Nance's home, they located a photograph of Wayne Nance and his former girlfriend, Marcy Bachman, a.k.a. Robin, a.k.a. Debbie Deer Creek.
So the detectives just need a picture. Like they need it put right in front of them. Like, hey, here's a guy.
You know, if bloody underwear won't do it, and an identification of you at a crime scene, a picture of you, and I've seen this picture, it literally is him like kissing her cheek. And that was enough.
She's still Jane Doe at this point, right?
Yeah, nobody, they won't know who she is until 2006. This entire picture doesn't come together until like the 2000s. Montana. Now, also,
I really want to do more stories in Montana. I'm excited.
I feel like there are a few we need to do because this one wasn't even the one that you like recommended. I said, hey, we have people who listen from Montana. They've recommended stories. Can you tell me? And then you never told me. So I searched Montana killers.
I told her.
And now I know. But back to Wayne Nance. In searching his home, investigators located a hunting knife, which connected Nance to Donna Pound's murder, and a ceramic statuette, which had been taken from the Shook residence.
Oh, geez.
Connecting Nance to both of the home invasions turned murders.
And he was only connected with 3, well, I guess it's 4, right? Is that where we're at now?
Pounds, 3 women, and then both Shooks.
Yeah.
So it's 6.
Yep. He was only connected with those murders.
At that point.
Okay.
So once Debbie Deer Creek is identified, matching Nance to one of the victims found discarded in the woods, investigators speculate that since Robin, Debbie Deer Creek, was most likely killed by her then boyfriend Nance, and the circumstances around each of the 3 sets of female remains found outside were so similar, it's now post-2006 widely accepted that Nance is most likely the man responsible for Devonna Nelson, a.k.a. Betty Beavertails, and then unidentified victim Christy Crystal Creek's deaths as well.
Okay, so there's not
physical
evidence.
No.
Do they just not keep things from those ones that they like to match DNAs?
I nothing in my sources talked about matching DNAs.
But Pounds, did they? Was it just
79?
accepted that he was connected to Pounds?
Yeah, he was the initial let's talk to Nance.
I mean,
they found the hunting knife.
It's kind of obvious.
He did it. He visited the home many times. His Donna Pounds' children, Kevin, Kathy, Karen, whatever their K names were literally his friends. He knew where their weapon was. He was at their home.
Oh.
Come on.
I meant to ask this earlier. How big is this town? Missoula?
I'm pretty sure you meant to ask Google because I don't know. It's Missoula, Montana.
I guess I could.
Hey, Google.
How big was Missoula, Montana?
I hope you guys are enjoying your evening. My husband's just looking at population statistics.
Okay, so
dead air.
It's great radio right here.
Good thing it's not radio.
We'll shorten this time.
Do 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 do. Do 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 do.
Did you know you could look up a whole Wikipedia page? Okay, here we go. Population. We're in 1970s, so okay, let me make a hard stop. Okay, so according to Wikipedia, 1970s population is around 30,000, and then
Jeez, Missoula,
1980s is 33 to 34. So, yeah, you're looking around 30 to 35,000.
That's the
population.
size of the CSU campus.
Yeah, it's basically
not big.
a college.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty small.
Well,
small town. So you do have small town cops and detectives.
Well, for these small town cops and detectives, upon connecting each of these crimes, investigators realized that in the 12-year span from the first crime at the Pounds residence to the last crime, the attempted murder of Doug and Chris Wells, they had actually had, unbeknownst to them, a serial killer on their hands. Now, in May of 2021, our last unidentified victim, Crystal Creek, would finally get her name back when those set of remains were identified as Janet Lee Lucas. Janet had grown up in California and Washington, and at the time of her death had a 5-year-old son. This son spent much of his adult life searching for his missing mother. Now, from 1774 to 1777, Wayne Nance was enlisted in the U.S. Navy, leaving the door open to many other crimes he could have committed during his time as he traveled abroad. But it seems that if our serial killer did indeed begin killing during this time, we most likely will never know. Final thoughts?
I just wonder how many more people he killed.
100%.
More. I mean, it has to be more, right?
And had they never found that picture of him and connected Debbie Deer Creek to him, they never would have connected those 3 women. So what other crimes is he responsible for? That's what I want to know.
Oh, it has to be way more. And not just murder. Can't be his first time raping somebody, I'd imagine. I don't know. And if it is, maybe it is. I don't know what it's like to murder somebody. That probably takes a toll on your mental game. Maybe it does take 6 years later to go ahead and attempt it again. But I would imagine from, the small pool of those that continually murder, I would think that they feel a need to do it pretty quickly after. But at the same time, it's I don't think there's an exact science on
don't tell Mindhunter that.
Well, I mean, there's science on it. There's not an exact science on it, on what the psychopath that actually decides to murder really does, and what the normal way is, and what can you expect from every single one of them. It is a very small population of humankind, luckily,
that does what he did.
And we only know about him because it is a small population, and it becomes quite a transfixing story for everybody at the time. And here we are doing a podcast. 50 years later. Well, not 50.
No, it's literally 50 years later.
40, jeez.
50 years later.
Yeah. We're not 50, by the way. Just
all right. Well, when Doug Wells woke up on the morning of September 3rd, 1986, I don't think he had any inkling that that would be the day he would come face to face with the Missoula Mauler, or Montana's babyface killer. The monikers given to Nance once it was realized he most likely was a serial killer. But in equal measure, when Nance decided to attack Doug Wells on that fateful night, I don't think he had any notion that although he had successfully murdered at will, undetected in Montana for years, that would be the night his murderous ways would come to an end. Wayne Nance showed up at the Wells home a hunter, only to become the hunted. Like a predator, he attacked Doug, intending to kill him and then move on to his wife. But in the end, it was Nance himself who that night would be the prey.